Alright, so I'm going to show how to open up and disassemble this MSI Prestige 15 model 10SC. Alright, so anyways, first thing we're going to do is get a PH1 or JS1 screwdriver and remove all the screws from the bottom. You want to keep the screws in order. The way I do that, I put the flat side down like this. In the pattern, I remove them on my desk. Alright, so you can use whatever you want, but whatever pattern you want to keep it in order, but I like to go in rows like this. So you see there's 2 here. Okay, then we're going to go across. Since these are kind of close together, I'm just going to keep them in one row. So there's 4 in this row. Okay, actually there's 1 hidden underneath here, so that's going to be a little tricky. I guess there's 5 actually. There's also a battery reset button here, so if your computer's having issues booting, you can sometimes use a needle or a pin to press and hold that button. You just push it through there and you'll feel it click. Just push that for about 15 seconds and sometimes that will fix some of the problems. Alright, there's a factory seal here, so I'm going to get this sticker off. Most likely this kind of sticker is just going to shred up to bits, so it's not something you can put back. You don't really have to peel it completely off. You can just poke a hole in it if you want, because either way you're not going to be able to put the sticker back, but I like to just remove it completely. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that. Just like this. Almost got all of it. Okay, there we go. So now we got that off. Alright, now you can see there's another PH1 or JS1 screw under there. We're going to remove that as well. Okay, so I'm going to put these 5 in a row, since none of them are kind of overlapping vertically, so it's easier to keep track of. I don't know why this screw's not coming out. Let me use a magnet to get that out. There we go. Okay, so we got those 5 out, and then we're going to get the last 4 down here out. So this one actually has a damaged hinge, as well as the screen's not coming on. So the reason why I'm opening the bottom is because I want to check, make sure that if I'm going to tighten the screen connection, that I want to disconnect the battery first just to be safe. Alright, so now we got all those screws out. Let's go ahead and see about popping this cover off. So to do that, I'm going to try it with a suction cup first. Okay, so I'm going to hold this side down. Oh, and it comes off pretty easily, at least that side. Alright, this side there's not much area to use the suction cup because all the stickers all over it. Let's see if we can get it from here, kind of. Okay, yep. Alright, so there we go. Alright, so now we got the front side up. We're going to kind of just wiggle this around and see if we can pull this off. There we go. And it pops out just like that. It is pretty dusty in here, so I am going to have to clean that up first, and then I'll be back. Alright, so you can see the inside. Alright, there's a M.2 PCIe NVMe SSD. Then there's 2 sticks of RAM. It looks like there's another slot for an M.2, but they didn't really list what type of SSD it supports. I'm going to guess it also supports PCIe NVMe, but sometimes they only support SATA. Alright, this is SSD slot 0 and SSD slot 1. They actually label it. They put little things down there. Wireless cards here. I'm not going to be taking all this stuff out. If you want to see how to do that, you can watch my other videos. And oh, I can actually see the LCD cable is disconnected. It's somehow, I don't know, it's much shorter than it should be, so it doesn't even reach here anymore. So it looks like I am going to have to actually pull the screen out and then see about fixing that. Okay, the type of RAM here, just pull these 2 tabs to the side. Alright, 16 gig PC4 2666V. You can put any PC4 2666V. I think currently 16 gig stick is the max capacity, so there's 216, so 32 gigs total. Alright, and anyways, yeah, so usually first thing I would do is remove the battery before messing with this cable, but it already got yanked out, so there's not really anything we can do about that. Hopefully it didn't already fry itself, because if it did, it likely is going to be a motherboard issue. But anyways, I'm going to disconnect the battery, so I just use the 2 edges here. Let's actually zoom in a bit here. Okay, so I like to use my fingernails at the edges of the connector here, and then I kind of just wiggle it and it will slowly eventually walk its way out. It might look like it's not really moving anywhere, but if you keep going, eventually it will pop out. This is going to screw up my fingernails usually. You can also use a little tool that can fit in the center of this little piece to help pull it out, but usually I find this method works best. So I'm going to switch fingers now because that one's getting screwed up. Wow, this one's actually really tough to pull out. Okay, I might have to actually take the screws out of the battery to do this, but let's go ahead and continue trying a little bit more. Again, this is just, I don't know if you can see, screwing up the fingernails. That's why fingernails are nice, because if you do this with plastic pry tools, you're going to break them all and then you're going to need new ones. Fingernails, you can just let them grow back out eventually. All right, so we got this part out. Let me see, I'm going to try using a tool that will fit in there to kind of help pull it. Let's see, I'm going to need a small flathead screwdriver. Is this one too big? Okay, this will kind of work. And now I can kind of push with the screwdriver as I kind of wiggle this, and hopefully that will be enough to get this out. Okay, come on. Wow, this one is tough. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now we got the connector out. It is also a little tough because I'm leaving the battery in here, so this cable's kind of getting in the way, so you can actually lift this over the battery, and then you can kind of wiggle that and pull that out. So there you go. If you're wondering, let's see if there's a battery model number here. Yes, there is. So battery model number here, BTY-M6L. All right. So anyways, let's zoom back out a bit. Okay, you got the BIOS Cmos RTC battery underneath this piece of tape here, and most likely it has these kinds of connectors like the speaker connector. These ones are a little bit easier with the actual wings on them, but anyways, there's the speaker connection here, and most likely there's a wire that runs along either underneath or on top. Let's see here. Okay, it looks like the wire, there's a black and red wire for this speaker, runs along underneath the battery over to this speaker. Okay, and there's the button I was talking about that you can press through the case, so you don't have to open the case to get to this. The fans look like you can probably take them out. I'm not going to take it out because there's some tape on this. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and clean this dust up and I'll be back. Alright, so I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, so I cleaned the dust out as you can see. Okay, so you can see we cleaned the bottom cover as well. Alright, so we're going to set that aside. So now that we've got that, normally what you do after disconnecting the battery, you want to open up the computer and then press and hold the power button for about 15 seconds. Right now, because the hinge is broken on the other side, I have to be extra careful. If I lift this up, the hinges are going to pull themselves out. Oh man, so it's already kind of yanking itself out. Let me see if I can open this back up. Hopefully the screen LCD panel itself is okay. Let's see, so I'm going to get my fingers underneath the hinge and I'm going to pull it up, all right, just like this. All right, that worked. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hang the screen over the edge of my desk. Okay, let me see if I can show this to you guys. I have to zoom out a little bit. Okay, let's see if I can angle this. All right, so as you can see, right now I'm angling or hanging the screen off the edge of my desk. All right, oops. Okay, and then what we're going to do now is we're going to remove all those screws. Okay, and then we should be able to lift the screen out. But again, after disconnecting the battery, you do want to press and hold the power button for about 15 seconds. So I'm going to do that right now. Right, this will drain any residual power from the battery and will make it a lot safer to work on. So let me do that for a bit, hold it for about 5 more seconds. And that will make it, again, safer to work on. If you don't do that, there's a good chance you can fry the motherboard or even the screen backlight circuit. Okay, so as you can see, there's 3 screws on each side, and then it doesn't have a screw on there. If you want, you can mark that with something, but they do actually put an X right there to kind of help you know that there shouldn't be a screw there. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove these screws. It looks like this design might be pretty nice for removing the screen. I don't see any other connections going into the screen here, so hopefully that means it's just the LCD or LVDS connector. If you didn't know how to remove that, there's this little latch that you flip up, and then after that you can pull the connector out. But anyways, let's get all these screws out and let's take a look at what's going on with the screen. Okay. Alright, so now that we got the 3 screws out from each hinge, let's go ahead and lift the screen out. And yes, there's nothing else in there. The customer, when the hinge was breaking, they put some tape on it, which kind of made it ugly, but well, we'll see how this goes. Okay, let's zoom back in a bit. Okay, so now let's go ahead and remove the bezel here. Wow, okay, so normally this shouldn't separate. I don't know if you can see, but right now this bottom piece is separating from the screen, and that shouldn't happen. So as you can see, there used to be some glue in there. So that glue is not holding well. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be epoxying that back down. This side's also kind of breaking out, but it looks like it's breaking from the top side, not from the bottom. So let's see how we can get this apart. We're going to separate the bezel from the screen. Okay. So normally I wouldn't want to take the whole thing out, but we might have to. So here's, actually I can see the excess cabling that's coming out here. So hopefully that will be enough that we can actually reach the connector. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and get the screen out. They do use an adhesive all the way around this thing, so this is going to be a little bit risky to pull this screen out or the bezel off. So keep that in mind if you're doing this, that you want to be very careful, go very slowly to peel the bezel off if your screen is working okay, because otherwise you're going to have to replace this LCD panel and it's likely going to be pretty expensive. So anyways, you can see there's actually the adhesive kind of peeling apart there. Okay, and it is somewhat difficult to remove, but there we go, it's coming out. So I'm going to just keep working my way up along here, slowly peeling this away, kind of keeping some pressure on the screen so that it doesn't pull the screen out. Okay, there are some clips in here that are kind of also holding this in place, so let's go ahead and see. I guess I'll just peel out the whole screen. I kind of didn't want to peel out the whole thing, but let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling the bezel in this way and also twisting it this way. Okay, so that way that peels it out, as you can see. Okay. Wow, they taped like the whole thing on there. Maybe they will want to replace the screen anyways, because I don't know how you can get this adhesive residue off. You can probably use some rubbing alcohol to do it, but yeah, probably be, I don't know, a lot of elbow grease to clean that off. Okay, this one's stuck pretty strong. There we go. Slowly keep working your way. Okay, these bottom pieces are probably going to be very tough with the adhesive. Let's go ahead and slowly, carefully peel this up. Again, this can be risky, so you want to be careful. And then let's go ahead and try and get the bezel cover out from underneath the hinge here. There we go. Okay, slowly peeling this up, working our way over. Man, this adhesive. Okay. Again, this piece is supposed to stay down, so it's making it harder to remove the bezel. There we go. Okay, so I am going to have to epoxy that into place to keep it from coming back up. Oh, I feel what's going on here. The screen, there's a little plastic cover over the screen cable, or what do you call? Is it tearing? Oh, that thing is tearing. So here you can see there's this black plastic stuff that's supposed to go over the bottom part of the screen here, and that piece is actually tearing. So I'm gonna get my finger under there and try and keep that piece down. Okay, just like this and work our way over. Hopefully this screen is still okay. Again, peeling this stuff up can be a little risky because it does pull on the screen itself. So we're just going to keep working our way over. Keep working our way down. We're almost there. Okay, it helps to pull this side up and then the clips will be able to pop out. Okay. Okay, there we go. And now we got this all out. And some of the plastic here kind of tore off. That's most likely from this hinge actually ripping on it. So hopefully this will be okay. As you can see, this part of the cable looks to be still intact. So we're not going to do anything with that. I'm going to stick this double stick adhesive back down. It looks like they only had double stick adhesive over the center here where the camera is. Okay, so we're going to set the bezel aside. Oh man. Okay, so let's see here. Did that rip out the... So on this one, actually the screw mounts got ripped out. I don't know if you can see that, but there you can see the pieces underneath. The screw mounts actually got torn out of the hinge. It looks like one of them might still be intact. The rest all got torn out. This one, the part that holds the screw mounts into place got torn out. So I'm going to epoxy this down into place and hopefully it will hold strong enough. Hopefully this didn't damage the screen over here. It looks like it might have, so there's a good chance the screen isn't going to work anymore, but we will find out once we get everything put back together. As far as this screen goes, I'm not sure how it's holding into the bezel here. It looks like they just glued the whole screen into the bezel because I don't see any stretch release adhesives or anything. So if we did have to take this screen out, we're likely going to have to just rip it out of this piece. We're gonna see what we're gonna have to do. Anyways, let's see here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, actually the plastic is still in there. So as you can see, it actually broke the plastic and then you can see the white layer underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some JB Weld, stick it underneath all of this stuff, and hopefully it will be strong enough to hold it all together that it won't come back out. We're going to put the bezel back on top and then put it back together. And yeah, we'll hope for the best. So let's go ahead and mix up some JB Weld. We shouldn't need a crazy amount because it's just the flat part that's come out. Okay, so let's go ahead and get some JB Weld. So JB Weld is a 2-part epoxy. It's, as far as I know, is the strongest for this kind of use. I don't know if there's anything better. If somebody knows, just let me know. But anyways, this is what we're using because that's what we know so far will work best. Okay, so there's a black part and there's a white part. Mix them together, and of course it turns gray. Okay. We probably won't need too much. Let's see. So maybe about that. That's probably already more than enough. Okay. Every situation differs, so usually these kinds of repairs I don't like to do videos on because it's kind of something where you'd have to figure out on your own. It's not something where you can just follow along. And then when I have people, sometimes will follow along, they mess it up, and then it causes more problems. So if you're going to do this, be sure that you're okay probably causing permanent damage to your computer if you don't know what you're doing. Alright. If you mess this up, then even if you were to get replacement parts later on, it might cause some problems. You might, if you do this and you screw it up, I mean, you could always just replace this whole screen bezel, so I guess it's not too big of a deal. Alright, anyways, let me clean off these. Okay, so we got the two things of epoxy. Now we're just going to stir it up. You can use whatever you want. I'm stirring it on this clear plastic thing because I like to check the bottom to make sure everything is stirred together properly. Okay. Just mix it up like that. Stir it up. Okay. Stir it up some more. Again, this is probably more than enough, but it's better to have more ready than having to stop midway and then continue mixing some new batch. Okay. All right, so there we go. Looks pretty well mixed. If you look from the bottom, it's pretty well mixed. There's a little bit of the white on this side that I need to kind of try and get in, but for the most part, it's pretty well mixed. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, we're just basically going to try and get the epoxy underneath there. I don't know if I can really show this too well. I mean, you basically get the idea. I'm gonna just lift this stuff up and then I'm just gonna get the epoxy underneath, okay? Just like this. Okay, on this side, you probably don't need too much because this isn't really holding anything. It's just for the bezel. So don't worry if it doesn't stick too much. The main part is where the hinge is, okay? So we got that. Now let's go ahead and move over to the hinge and then let's get a bunch of epoxy under there. Okay, so I'm just gonna lift this up and then I'm sticking it to the bottom half. Basically just get it all over underneath there. Okay, you can probably even use like a brush for this kind of thing, but just get the epoxy all over underneath. Try to avoid getting it to the screen. Keep in mind that when you put the hinge down, it is going to spread the epoxy across underneath. Okay, if you want, you can put some up along the back edge of this. I know it's hard to see. Let me see if I can zoom in a bit to show this better. Okay, so I'm also putting a little along the edge here, but as we push it down, it is going to smash and splat itself out anyways. Okay, and then we're also going to put it on the back of the plastic piece that separated from the screen as well. So you want a pretty thin layer. You don't need a crazy amount. I probably already put way too much in here. That when we put the thing down, it's gonna smear all over the place, spread out. And then you kind of want to stick it to the bottom. That way you make sure that both sides have a good coating of the epoxy or JB Weld. Okay, we're gonna go all the way over to the outer edge as well. Go, and then you can go ahead and just push that down, smush that into place. If some of it is coming out, you do want to try and clean that up so it's not just flowing out of there. Otherwise you might accidentally glue the bezel down and then you won't be able to take it back out. Alright, so let's see here. So this looks okay. I don't see anything leaking out. And up here, alright. So you should be good with that side. This stuff will have to sit and cure for about 15 hours. So you are going to have to just leave it like this. You can actually put the bezel on top to help smush it down. But other than that, yeah. Alright, so now we're going to work on the other side. This side hopefully won't need too much. We just need to basically get it all underneath here. I might need a thinner tool for this. Let me see, I might have to, let's see if this will help me lift it up a little bit to make it easier to work on. How can I do this? Okay. Okay, basically just gonna push the epoxy into there. Oh, Okay, that's gonna be tough. I guess we'll just leave it down. All right, so basically lift this thing up and get the epoxy underneath there. Try and fill up all the gaps. Get it all underneath the bottom of this piece, okay? Again, you want to try and clean any spillage that comes out over the edges. Okay, so now you can see when we push this down, it is spilling over the edge here. It's fine in between here, but back here you probably want to clean that up. Okay, this piece looks like it's coming out, so I'm going to use the screwdriver and make sure these screws are completely in. Oh, I need to use a PH0 or JS0 for this. Yeah, so that one is just spinning around loosely in there, so definitely gonna have to get more JB Weld back there. This one likely will just pop out. Oh yeah, okay, definitely. So if you want, you can actually get some JB Weld into there. Alright. Normally I would just completely fill this hole with JB Weld, but because the other ones have the 3 screws, let's see, I might just put the screw on top. Let's see if I have enough JB Weld to completely fill that hole up, then maybe I'll just leave it like that. Nope, I don't think I made enough for that. Okay, let's try putting what we got left. Well, we do have quite a bit. Okay, so I'm just gonna fill this completely, and that will hold this down into the base there, and hopefully it will be strong enough that it doesn't come back out. I'm gonna put some JB Weld over here as well into this little crevice. Okay, and hopefully that will be enough to hold the entire thing in. This one you can actually lift and drop. Let's see, there's some extra JB Weld coming out here, so I'm going to take that and fill it up over here. Again, we don't want all this excess stuff coming out here, so we're, oops, sorry, my head's getting in the view. I'm going to pull it out and put it all over there. Okay, let's get out some more of this. And get all that last bit of JB Weld and fill up that little spot. Okay, got a little bit more. Let's go ahead and fill that up. Okay, that should be good. So we don't need to put that screw back in. I'm gonna leave that out. I'm gonna clean up just a little bit. Well, we'll just clean up the screwdriver. I guess the excess that's in there should be okay. What I'm going to do is, oh, there's a little bit too much here. I'm going to push that closer to the hinge itself. And then I'm going to get some saran wrap just to cover this up. And that way when the bezel is on top, it will keep it from sticking together. So, okay. Let's go ahead and clean up this stuff. I like to reuse this thing, so I'm just going to use some paper towel and clean off the epoxy JB Weld. Okay, I have a lot of these plastic things, so technically I don't need to, but I mean, why not? Okay. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to set the stuff aside here, and let's go ahead now and put the bezel back on. So again, we're going to use some saran wrap. Let me make sure I got some left. Okay, I do. Alright, so let's set that aside. Okay, so we got some scissors here. We get the saran wrap here. Okay. And we're just going to cut it to cover the JB weld so that it doesn't get into places where you don't want it. Okay, so this might be too tall, so I'm going to cut it a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and cover this up. Saran wrap's a little bit tricky to work with because it keeps sticking to itself, but just grab it and stick it over the JB weld, just like that, all right? And that will create a barrier, so when you put the bezel on top, it's not going to get coated with it, and it won't cause any issues, okay? So same thing with this side. Just gonna cut a small thin piece. Okay, and we're just gonna cover this. You don't really have to worry too much with this covering the clips or anything, because it's so thin that the clips can kind of just go on top and it won't really be an issue. Okay, so there we go. Okay, now let's go ahead and put the bezel back on. Okay, let's see, do we have to do this side? This side? Not really. I'll put a little bit just to be safe. Okay. So this side also has a little bit of exposed. I have a feeling this might be already, the screen might already be messed up because the way they designed it, I don't know if they did that on purpose, but it's a very bad design because the screen cable here goes underneath the hinge goes underneath the hinge itself, or the hinge goes underneath this cable part of the screen itself, and that's actually very risky because when the hinge pulls up, it rips out these pieces. But anyways, let's go ahead and zoom out. So yeah, I think it's purposely designed like that to destroy itself if something goes wrong. Anyways, bezel time. Okay, so it looks like we can't really move this cable out much. So I'm not sure if this cable is supposed to be underneath the hinge or on top of the hinge like this. I guess we could always come back to it if it doesn't reach. So let's go ahead and get this into place. Okay, I think it might actually have to go underneath. So let's move it over this way. And then that gives a little bit more room for it to work, or to move. Does it go under this way? Let's take a look here. So there's a little pathway here for the cable. So I don't know. I've never seen it when it wasn't broken, so I can't really say for sure. Okay, a lot of the epoxy is coming out the back here, so I am going to have to clean that up, as you can see. Alright, so that's not good. We need to make sure to clean that up. Too bad I didn't see that earlier. I could have added it to that little screw mount that was coming out earlier. But anyways, we'll clean this up. Okay, again, we don't want this getting onto the bezel and then sealing the two pieces together, because then if we need to work on it again later, it's going to be permanently stuck in there. So we're going to clean that stuff off if we can. Clean up the excess there. Okay, and hopefully it will be okay. It's overflowing quite a bit right there, so we're gonna have to keep cleaning it a little bit. And maybe I'll put a little saran wrap there as well. Okay, clean up the excess coming out over here as well. Okay, maybe I'll put some sticking out so that way we could always just pull it out later. Okay, so I'll get a piece of saran wrap here. It's stuck to my hand. Okay. So we're just going to put a piece of saran wrap here to cover this completely. That way if it flows out, it's okay and it won't get on the bezel. Okay, so I'm actually sticking it out like that. I could always peel that off later. Saran wrap, you can also kind of like burn it off. All right, and it will just melt out. Okay. All right, let's get this into place and get that into place. So we're going to line up these bottom pieces here. Click that into place, and we can go ahead and run along the bottom. Click all the clips into place, as you can see. All right. Side's not quite reaching for some reason. Huh. I think this stuff got bent. Okay, I see. So this one, the clip is actually broken off, so it's not holding right. I'll probably use some tape to hold that in place. Actually, this clip helped it, so I guess we don't need to use any tape. All right, I'm gonna run along here, make sure those get in. Looks like there aren't really any clips going up here that hold. So we're just gonna run our way here. And I'm pushing on the outer edge and kind of like helping it rotate, basically reverse of how we were pulling it up. Okay. It's easier than it looks. I've been doing this so long, so I kind of just know how to press on it. But anyways, there we go. Okay, this piece, as you can see, is kind of popping up. So maybe that cable does need to go under the other way, but I don't know. Well, we'll see. I'll try and get it to go this way. I'm gonna put some tape over this for now, just so it keeps a little more pressure on it. Okay, so let me get a piece of tape here. We're just going to use a small amount. We don't need anything crazy. Okay. And cut this in half. And we're going to stick it on this way. So, oh, this stuff keeps leaking out, so we're going to have to be careful with that. Okay. Maybe I'll put some tape over there to help seal it. Okay, so tape that, squeeze these two pieces together, tape over that. Okay, this side as well, tape over it, and all right, so hopefully that will keep these two pieces together so that way it can set properly. Okay, now let's go ahead and see about putting the screen back in. We are going to have to be careful because this is just temporary. We're going to have it closed in. It's not, well, it's not technically temporary. What I mean is we're not leaving it in this position. So we have to be careful with this. All right, let's see here. Is it going to work with the thing going underneath? Or does it need to go on top? Let's see here. It looks like it'll work. Or should it go over the top this way? If I make it go over the top. Okay, it works both ways. Okay, oops, let me zoom out a bit. Too much. Okay, so we're gonna now put back the screws here. Again, you wanna actually kind of hold up the screen so it doesn't fall out of place. Since the hinges are kind of weak right now. But I want it to set with it in this position. So we're gonna do, while we're holding the screen up, get the screws in. Okay, we got one. Uh-oh, I'm worried it's gonna come back out. Well, all right, there we go. Okay, make sure the screws are nice and tight. You don't want them coming loose. You can also add some thread locker to these screws to make sure that they stay in place. I'll eventually add red thread locker to them just to make sure that the screws don't come loose later. Anyways, now that we got all 3 of the screws on each hinge into place, let's go ahead and reconnect the screen. I'm gonna plug this in and make sure it turns on. But let's see. Okay, so we're gonna get this cable back in. We're gonna zoom in a little bit. I can't show this more close up because of the way it is right now. If I lift it up, it might get messed up. So let's get this connector in. Once you get that in, flip that latch down. Okay, and then as you can see, they kind of just tape this into place. All right, so I don't know if this is supposed to go on top. It might be better to make it go underneath, but for now, we'll leave it like that. Okay. It might have been better if I made it go underneath the hinge, because I don't think this, let's see what this cover. It fits okay. All right, let's go ahead and plug the battery back in and see if it powers up, if the screen comes on. Pinch the 2 pieces together. I'm gonna put these screws in for the hinge down here. All right, if you want, you can go ahead and clip everything back in. Okay. So we're gonna put, oh, sorry, I'm doing this off view of the camera, but I'm just putting the 2 screws for the hinges back in for now. Okay, let's flip this thing over and we'll see if it powers up. I am going to have to plug it in. I think the battery's completely dead or drained on this. Okay, so let's plug it in and see our luck. All right, hold on, I'm gonna get that and we'll be back. Oh, here you can see the model number better, Prestige 15 A10SC. All right, let me get the plug and I'll be back. All right, so I got it plugged in. It's a USB-C charger. Let's power it up and see if we're lucky. Hopefully the screen will come up. Otherwise, oh, it looks like we're lucky. So the screen's working. So I'm gonna close this, let the epoxy set, and hopefully we'll be good to go. So here you can see it's booting. I'm gonna close this, put the rest of the screws back in, and then let it sit for 15 hours overnight. And hopefully everything will be good as new for this. I am gonna try and clean this off a little bit with some rubbing alcohol later. But yeah, other than that, it looks like we're good to go. All right, thanks for watching. You're welcome to stay as I put in the rest of the screws. Let me actually shut this down. Okay. So I'm gonna close this up. And what I'm doing is I'm putting pressure on the back here to close it, so that way all the pressure is right over the hinges. Okay. Right, so that one looks like it will probably be good. Let's go ahead and get all these screws back in. Okay, so get the screwdriver and go ahead and put all the bottom screws back in. So I already put these 2 back here to hold the hinges better when I closed it. And actually, to be safe, let me also put some JB weld into the hinge screws. So let's pop these 2 back out, just to be safe. Okay. All right, let's pop this back off. Same thing, just use a suction cup. Comes out pretty easily. Oops. Okay, sorry, no, I'm not zoomed out enough, but there we go. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna add some red thread locker in here just to make sure these screws don't come loose later on. Okay. And you don't put much. Usually you don't want to do this over the computer, but I'm just doing it as a demonstration so you can kind of see. So not even a full drop, just a little bit like that. All right, and then get the screw in. You want to be careful because if you put too much, this stuff can make the plastic brittle. So if you put too much and if it overflows into the plastic, it can cause the plastic mounts to break later. So be very careful with that. Okay. Again, I'm only putting a little bit, very little. It's just enough to coat the threads. of the screws, okay? So we're going to do that on all 6 of these screws, and that's pretty much all there is to this. Okay, this one. And then we're just going to put back all the screws. So hopefully this is the right position for this cable. I don't think it's supposed to go underneath, because then it kind of goes sideways at an angle. And also this is kind of how I found it, so we'll leave it like that. If it does somehow yank itself out, I could always take the hinge out and then do it again, fix it properly, or put it the other way. Okay, get all these screws back in. All right, last screw. All right. There we go. All right, let's get the bottom cover back on. Again, I did leave this plastic here so it doesn't stick to the bezel itself. Eventually, I'm just gonna tear this thing off and we should be okay. This piece, the excess is actually filling with epoxy, so that's actually good. It'll be stronger and hopefully it will hold itself together really well. All right, let's get the bottom cover back on and put the last remaining screws and we'll be good to go. Okay, this one, just line everything back up. Looks like there are clips on the back side here. There we go, clip that in. All right, and then we're gonna get all the screws back in. But that's pretty much all there is to this. Again, hopefully this video helped you guys. If it did, make sure to like, subscribe, share my channel with others so that they can learn how to upgrade and repair their devices. If it helped you save a bunch of money, please consider contributing a little to the channel. Every little bit helps and allows me to continue making these videos for a living. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Make sure all these clips go in. All right, and let's get all these screws down. Oh, and also, it's best to let it lay in the position where it keeps the epoxy into the hinges. So once it's done, it's actually best to let it sit upside down like this. Okay, there we go. Did that clip stay in? Oh, there we go. Get that other clip in as well. All right, last 2. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one. Let's drop this. Bye.